One of the things that I hear about all the time from my coaching clients is how can I create more of a culture of experimentation with my team? I know I want them to experiment more. I've shared it with my team, but for whatever reason, I struggle to enforce it. And a lot of times my team sort of diverts to the way that things have always been done. And I want to change that. How can I do it? I have worked with a ton of clients on this exact challenge, and here's the way that I work through it with them. And for context, for anyone who doesn't know, I work as a coach and as a mentor for people who are leading growth teams. So I hear about this challenge often, and especially at companies where there's a new growth leader brought in as part of creating more cultural change. So they struggle with this. And here's exactly how I work through it. The first step in creating this type of a change is to get really crystal clear on what outcomes you want. And to do this, I actually usually encourage a lot of my clients to make basically two artifacts. The first is the strategy, which is the what, right? That's a lot of what we talk about in the growth space. What should we do? What does good look like? What outcomes are we pushing towards? But really, the second one is more important, which is the how. And how do we go about doing the work? And to accomplish that, I'll typically work with clients on creating, I call it an operating manual. It's a set of systems and processes and goals and tactics and collaboration systems so that this work can get done in a different way. And as part of that, in a growth operations manual, I would typically encourage them to define team values. Those are things that are important to the way the work gets done and how that team should make decisions when their leader isn't in the room. So values that are on my operations manual that I've shared with my teams in the past have been things like focus on learning and sharing to enable other areas of the organization to get better, providing value to users as quickly as possible, putting our users' opinions over our own internal opinions, using data to drive our decision-making process, running experimentation before making deep investment and focusing on polish, and having a bias towards simple solutions at scale. Those are things that are on mine. And at every company, probably you would define different values for your growth team. But if you want to create cultural change, and specifically, if you want to get your team to adopt more of an experimentation mindset, I would create a set of values. And the first value on that list should be we experiment to figure out what works and what doesn't work, or some flavor of that answer. When you have your growth operations manual, when you've defined your set of values that you want your team to use when you're not around, I would then launch it internally as if it's a new feature. Meaning, I would share it with the executive team to make sure that they're aligned with the way that you're going to be running your team if they need to weigh in or want to weigh in. Then I would share it with your team internally so that they know what to expect and allow them to ask questions in terms of why those values are important and what this means for their role and things like that. And then I would share it with the company and say, hey, I just wanted to share something that our team has been working on. It is a operating manual that standardizes how we approach the work that we do. And as part of that, here's some of our team values. You're going to see that reflected in a lot of the work, right? So this lets your team know that it's important because you've launched it at your team level, you've launched it at the organizational level. And then what you can do is reinforce it and reward it at the team and individual level. Meaning that once I've defined these and I've launched them, then what I want to do is operationalize it in my weekly operating system. So I know I'm using the word operating a lot of times. Essentially what that looks like in practice is in my planning meetings, I want to make sure that I'm asking questions. Hey, what opportunities do you have to execute using our values this week? At the one-on-one level, I'm asking a version of that same question. Hey, what opportunities did you have to experiment or to question the way that we've always done things this week? And then that way my team knows, hey, this wasn't just something that we talked about. This is something that now I'm getting asked about on a weekly basis, both as a group and as an individual. You could even incorporate this executing using the team values into their performance conversations and into their performance review. There's all kinds of ways that you could apply this. You could reward folks publicly who have exemplified great adoption of these team values, things like that. And I think the accelerant is if you are in a leadership position, you can live and exemplify those values. Meaning, if you want to have more experimentation on your team, as a team lead, you should get up in front of whatever opportunities you have to get in front of your company, and you should share exciting experiments that you're working on and how they're going. And probably if you want to encourage your team to fail a little bit more, which is usually what's behind the push to experiment more, then I would get up there as a team lead and I would share an experiment that I was really excited about and how I was dead wrong with what actually happened in practice. My hypothesis was incorrect, what I learned from it, and how that learning made me better. Because that's what you want your team to do. You want them to learn what works so that they can maximize their wins. You want them to learn what doesn't work so that they don't make the same mistakes over and over again. And so that's the way that you can reinforce that. So if you want to create more of a culture of experimentation on your team, those are 3 things that you can try. Defining your team values, wrapping them into a team operations manual, launching them to your team, launching them to your company, and then dog fooding experimentation yourself. Hope this helps. Give me a shout in the comments or tag me online if you have any questions.